Welcome to Career Tools. This is Wendy.
And this is Amanda.
Today's cast, public speaking, dealing with anxiety.
The questions this cast answers are: how can I stop being nervous when I speak in public? What can I do to not sound nervous when I speak in public? And what tricks are there to successful presentations?
If you want answers to these questions and more, keep listening.
Whether you've just joined the workforce or are an already established professional, whether you're looking to advance your current role, transition to a new industry, or gain more confidence in your professional abilities, the Career Tools license was built for professionals just like you. Check it out online today at manager-tools.com/career.
Public speaking is one of the most common fears, but somebody told me people fear public speaking more than death. I think it's just because those two things are far apart in time for most people. But if you are a nervous public speaker or you're anxious about it, you are not alone. And some nervousness is helpful because it makes you alert. It turns on all those systems in your body. But some people are so anxious that they never want to speak in public. Even in small meetings where everybody's familiar, it's a team meeting, there's only 5 people, but some people are that nervous that they don't want to speak in that environment either. And speaking up and speaking in front of groups and giving presentations is essential to most people's career success. Most people at least will have to contribute in a meeting if they don't ever have to stand on the stage in front of 10,000 people. But most people will have to give presentations at some stage. And so we're going to try and help you to turn that anxiety down to just nervousness so that you can enhance your career prospects.
So today we're going to talk about, first, practice, then arrive early, then remove impediments, then don't start until you're ready. After that, we'll address common questions first, and lastly, make eye contact with your supporters.
Practice. If you only hear one thing, hear practice. Practice your presentation or whatever you're going to do out loud, standing if you will be standing, and sitting if you're going to be on Zoom or in a conference room. This is so important that we have an entire podcast called How to Practice a Presentation. And we say something about practice in every single podcast we have about presentations. I counted up this one. There's about 30 of them, and practice comes into every single one of them.
And practice not just for the long ones, but the short ones too. Just always practice. And this topic is near and dear to my heart because that's the majority of my work here is presenting. And I still get really nervous talking in front of people. Maybe not at the conferences, but Wendy could tell you how well I present in our staff meetings.
And when we're saying presentation, we don't let that word intimidate you, because these techniques work just as well for the 2-minute project update, for the staff meeting update that Amanda just mentioned, those kind of things, as they do for, a full-on presentation. So it doesn't matter whether you're starting small by speaking up in team meetings, or you're preparing for some full-on speech, the same principles apply.
And if practicing what you want to say is the only thing that you'll do, you'll be a better speaker. Practice helps by uncovering and eliminating many sources of anxiety before you face your audience. For most people, the fundamental fear in public speaking is that they'll freeze up and struggle with the words. So by rehearsing them out loud at home, we prove to ourselves that we can say those words, immediately giving ourselves more confidence and abilities. I know that this is a big one for me, at least, saying the words aloud, ensure that I actually can form the words, because some are harder to say than others. And practicing those words, you're like, oh yeah, I'm not using that one ever again. So saying them out loud is much different than just rehearsing in your head, for sure.
And there's no reason that you need to have one of those $5 words when a 2-cent word will do. Use the one that you can say. And practicing with someone else who will be part of or who is similar to your audience will give you even more confidence, because they'll let you know what doesn't make sense, or what you're doing that's distracting, or whether you look or sound awkward, all things that you're probably worrying about, and probably things that you're not doing, right? It's unlikely that you are incomprehensible, that your body language or you're doing something that's completely distracting, and that you look and sound awkward. Most people have like one or two things that they could work on. There's maybe one thing that's super distracting that you could get rid of. And most people, secret, aren't that great at speaking themselves. So they pay less attention than you think to what you're doing. And getting feedback is uncomfortable, sure, but it's better to get feedback in front of just one person than a group. Like you don't want the feedback from your boss in front of like the meeting room when they say, hey, we can't hear you because you're speaking too quietly. It's kind of embarrassing. Whereas if you hear that from one person when you're practicing, that's much better. Or you never speak up or you never get feedback and your career suffers because speaking up is part of career success.
And make sure you listen to the podcast, How to Practice a Presentation, because that's where we really dig into this. We have just quickly skimmed the surface of what to practice and how, but really dig into it. You can listen to that podcast. So next, let's talk about arriving early. Arrive early is obvious advice when you're delivering a big presentation or speech, but it's equally helpful if you're going to a team meeting at which you are delivering an update.
Because in my experience, the anxiety is not just one thing. It's lots and lots of fears built on top of each other. And you can eliminate them one by one. If you have 100 fears that make up your anxiety about talking, and we can eliminate 90 of them, then you're down to just nervous, not anxious. So arriving early allows you to eliminate or minimize some of those 100 fears, and therefore we're moving you towards just being nervous.
And arriving early immediately erases the fear that I'm late or I'm not ready. Arriving early also means that you'll be present for the logistics conversations that usually take place before the meeting even starts and before most people arrive. Having that extra time to just get some of that background information before the official meeting, before the official talking starts, puts you at ease because you've been a part of that conversation. You're not going to be surprised by if something happens a little bit later. So, for example, if the agenda changes and your speaking slot moves earlier or later than expected, being part of that discussion gives you time to adjust. Hearing the change before it's discussed in the meeting, and then when it's announced at the start, eliminates the fear of, I won't know when to speak.
Arriving early to a physical space allows you to get used to that space if it's unfamiliar. You can do things like choose a seat that allows you, if you have to stand up and walk to the front of the room to present, then you can choose a seat where you have a straight shot to the front of the room, right? And not choose the seat where you have to like wiggle between people or push some other chairs in order to get that. You just choose a seat that means I can just walk straight there. And that way, again, you're eliminating worries about tripping or how do you get to the podium. And it also gives you time to test your video and your audio if you're remote or hybrid. You'll have time to find your notes and put them where you want them on your desk or on your desktop so that you can see them. All of those things are just eliminating those little worries, like I won't be able to find my notes when I need them. Okay? We've just eliminated it because we've just given you like 3 minutes to make sure you do know where your notes are.
And arriving early gives you time to connect with your audience. Again, this is relevant for speaking up in a team meeting as it is for a speech in front of thousands. By just saying, good morning, how are you? And getting a smile or a little conversation back can take away the fear of that unknown audience and turn them back into the people that want to hear what I have to say. And I know some background information manager tools, we show up almost an hour early to any of our conferences so we can do the logistics, so we can talk to people. And that really puts me at ease because having one or two people that you already have a connection with gives you that person to look at or to bounce ideas off of if you get stuck. Like it allows you that connection of you already know what you're getting into. So it can be very helpful. So arrive early and get to know a little bit of your audience.
And a little bit about, if it's an early morning meeting, who really isn't conscious because they haven't finished their coffee or, who had a really bad travel into work and is particularly spiky this morning. or whose birthday is it? Just the little things that just make you feel like, oh, they're humans and not like this scary audience in capital letters. Okay, so next we have remove impediments, or get things that are in your way out of your way. So take away anything that may cause you to stutter or stumble. So, for example, this is one of my friends is a very good competitive speaker, and she tells the story of the first time she ever gave a competitive speech, and nobody told her that you weren't supposed to have notes. So she had her notes for her speech on some letter-sized pieces of paper, and she went up on the stage and she had a microphone so people could hear everything that was going on, and her hands were shaking, and so the noise, the papers were rattling and making a noise that the microphone was then picking up, and then she could hear that noise, and she said it was the worst experience of her life, and I don't understand why she still competes, but she does. So take that from my friend Grace. Don't write your notes on big sheets of paper and then hold them if you're standing up to present, because if you are nervous and your hands shake a bit, or even if they get a bit clammy, the paper is not good. And it's just going to make you nervous when you realize that you're showing signs of nervousness. So use index cards if you need notes, so 3x5 cards, and number them too, because one of your fears may be that you're going to drop them, and when you drop them, you won't know what order they're in. If you number them, you are less nervous about dropping them, so you don't drop them, I find.
Yeah, and if anyone's going to drop note cards, it'll definitely be me.
And if you do something like that, just laugh, because it's happened to everybody who's a presenter. Like everybody I remember doing a Q&A session after a conference. For some reason, there were a lot of us Manager Tools people there. And I was telling a story, and I got halfway through the story and had no idea what the rest of the story was. I just petered out. Unfortunately, it was a story about we'd been in a car earlier and we'd all been together. And so somebody else picked it up. But literally, people have forgotten what they're talking about, forgotten the stream of consciousness. People have dropped things. People have fallen over on the way to the stage. I'm sure if you YouTube falling over on the way to a stage, people have done it. And it's way more uncomfortable for the audience if you don't acknowledge it than if you do. If you just say, oh, I'm a bit clumsy today, or oops, that step just jumped out of nowhere, or I have no idea what I was talking about. I am so sorry. Please go on and I'll come back when my brain comes back online. People will be grateful that you acknowledged it and you made it less uncomfortable for them. And therefore, it'll be less uncomfortable for you.
Yeah. Remember, people are forgiving because they've done it too.
Right.
They're glad that you are up there doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Another helpful hint is don't wear clothes, jewelry, or hairstyle that you can fidget with, especially if you're prone to fidgeting when you're anxious. The action of playing with our clothes or jewelry makes us look more nervous, even if we're not. And since one of our goals is to look more confident, make it easier by removing the opportunity to fidget. And the kicker with fidgeting is most of the time, you don't even know that you're fidgeting unless someone has told you, oh, those long sleeves, why are you grabbing at them? You're like, I'm doing what? So when you're practicing, if you're going to wear an outfit, you can also wear that outfit. See what you do if the buttons or something gets in your way. It can also be very helpful because we don't notice what we do to kind of self-soothe.
Mm-hmm.
So just take those opportunities away.
Talking about taking opportunities away, move furniture, cables, or items on your desk out the way if you think you're going to trip over them. And just skip that and assume that you're going to trip over them and move them.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter whether you think of yourself as clumsy or not. Just take away that opportunity for something to go wrong and you're eliminating another source of worry. I tell people the first time I ever talked to Mark on the phone, I was nervous and I had a pint glass of water on my table. And just as he picked up the phone, I knocked the water. So the entirety of our first 45 minutes on the phone was accompanied in my house by this dripping sound of water hitting the floor. So if you're going to knock the glass over, move the glass out of the way and just assume that you will and move it out of the way.
And if you're giving a presentation, don't give handouts. The audience will immediately start reading them. as soon as you hand them out. And that's distracting, not only for them, but also for you, because they're no longer focused on what you're saying. Confident practice presenters do give handouts, and that's fine when you're at their level. And when you're at their level, you can do it too. But for now, eliminate that, because if you're not practiced or ready for people to be distracted while you're talking, it's going to take away from your ability to focus.
And when we talk about your ability to focus, don't start until you are ready. So it's okay to take the time to make sure your slides are showing up, that your notes are where you want them, that you've moved the glass of water out of reach, that you've taken a breath before you start talking. And it does feel like forever to you, but it doesn't to the audience, because they're almost certainly thinking about something else. They're thinking about, oh, I've got to go next, and what am I going to say? Or they're thinking about their next meeting, or they're thinking about an email they got earlier, or they're thinking about their grocery list. They're not sitting in front of you counting. Oh, it's been 30 seconds, 31, 32, 33. They are in their own heads thinking about something else. So they notice that time going past much less than you do. And if you don't think this is true, think about times when you're in the audience. It's almost certainly true.
Yeah, 30 seconds is real fast when you're in the audience, and it's real slow when you're in front of them. Mm-hmm. You're the only one counting when you're up there. So don't worry about them. And make sure that you keep this setup brief. Think of it more as a quick checklist rather than a delay tactic. Once you've confirmed that your slides are visible, your notes are ready, and you know where the water is, take that deep breath and start talking. Don't worry if the first few words sound odd. Most people won't even notice, because they're still wrapped up in their own thoughts. Just keep talking and your voice will steady as you go.
Especially if you've practiced, because you start to hear the words that are familiar and your brain says, oh, I know what this is. I can do this. I'll just keep going. Rather than, when it gets into freak out mode and you can't do anything.
Yeah, just push through.
Yeah.
Manager Tools Effective Communicator Training is applicable to all professionals in an organization. It works for anyone who's customer-facing, internally or externally, works on project teams, or has influence in the organization. For example, you may have a head of IT architecture who has no one working for her, but she bridges the gap between IT coders and business analysts. You'd still want her to be influential, wouldn't you? Effective communication is all about taking one's natural style of communication and adapting it and aligning it with the person to whom they're speaking. Contact Maggie to discuss if this training is right for you by sending her a note to customer service at manager-tools.com.
One way to stop people distracting you is to address common questions first. So if you can anticipate specific questions, answer them first. So for example, if there are slides, someone will ask, will we get the slides later? They will ask it more than once, but if you answer it first, they don't get the opportunity to interrupt you. And if you do answer it and somebody else answers later, somebody in the meeting will say, yes, she said that. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to answer it again. So, save everybody the trouble by starting with, do your introduction of like, hi, I'm doing this. This is the purpose of this. And yes, I will send you the slides this afternoon. Or yeah, I will be sending you slides this afternoon. Or I will be sending you the materials this afternoon. Or yes, this call is being recorded and you'll be sent the recording. Whatever it is that you can anticipate people will ask, answer it first and you won't get that interruption. Again, it's one less thing for you to worry about.
Yeah, because when someone interrupts your train of thought with a question that's kind of off agenda, it takes a minute to get back into it, especially if you're newer, if you're nervous, you have that anxiety about presenting. So head that off before it can even get to you. And just think of the classic presentation structure. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you've already told them. Might seem repetitive, but it covers the audience's questions before the content starts. So when you're focusing on managing anxiety, this familiar format is your friend. Once you have more confidence, you can be more ambitious with your structure. So think about the questions that you might have and get ahead of it. If you typically want to know if you're going to have the materials, tell them first. I like to call it kind of all the housekeeping information out at the very beginning of any of my presentations. I'm like, here's where the bathrooms are. The breaks are 10 minutes. Slides are available.
Lunch is going to be at 12.
Yeah. Feel free to come and go. There's some of those like nice housekeeping things that you can get out ahead of so you don't get interrupted as much.
Make eye contact with your supporters. So good presenters make eye contact with the entire audience and with specific audience members during specific parts of their presentations. But don't set this as your bar if you're anxious. For now, just focus on making eye contact with your supporters in the audience. So those people that you talked to earlier, those people that you know are in a good mood because it's their birthday, or they're really excited to be here, or they're just, your friend at work. If you're making eye contact with them, you'll still be looking up from your notes and connecting visually with your audience, which is what people assume means confidence. And you're guaranteed a warm reception and an encouraging smile, which boosts your confidence when you're up there or even when you're speaking in a meeting. And if you're not sure who will give you that encouraging look, ask your friend beforehand to be your friendly face in the crowd.
Yeah.
If you think you're going to have to say something in a meeting that's maybe contentious, have somebody who is ready for you to say that and will back you up and say, oh yeah, I agree with what she just said. Don't leave things like that to chance. And then you're, again, removing more of the worries.
Yeah. And just to circle back to communication styles, if you have a high S in the room, they're going to be the person that is smiling and nodding and making eye contact. I always find my high S and you can make eye contact with them. And then on your next break, say, thanks I'm just going to be staring at you. You're my go-to person. Let them know that you appreciate it, because there are communication styles that are going to make the eye contact with you and smile and nod at whatever you're saying because they're there to support you. So find them.
Yes. And so gaining confidence in public speaking isn't really initially about learning or achieving the techniques that you see experienced speakers use. You're not trying to be Tony Robbins on your first go out. What you're trying to do is minimize the number of things that you're anxious about so we can ratchet down the anxiety to just nervousness. So initially, instead of trying to make yourself better, what you're doing is making speaking easier. And then the more you do it, the more confidence you'll have in your ability to do it. And then you can start thinking, okay, I really need to stop saying or like, or whatever your crutch word is. And you don't need to use all of this every time. We just gave you a whole lot of suggestions. We started by saying if you have 100 worries, you probably don't have 100 worries if you're talking in front of the 5 people that have been on your team for the last 2 years and you know them all really well. You may have 1 or 2, in which case, let's try and remove those, but you probably don't have all of them. So use what you need when you need it. If the team update just needs you to read the paragraph you're going to say once or twice and arrive a few minutes early so you can remind your friend, hey, I have to speak this week. Can you just smile at me when I do? Then that's all you might need. But if you're doing a conference presentation in front of 100 people, you might need every one of these tricks and more. Speaking anxiety is normal and manageable, and most people have had it too. I think there are some people who don't have it, but I think they're few and far between. And so most people have sympathy for you when you're struggling. And if you start with the basics and build your confidence, as your comfort grows, the more advanced presentation skills come more naturally. Like you'll want to try more things, but for now, just focus on managing the anxiety so that you can deliver your message effectively. And if you're looking for guidance about creating your presentation or how to use your body and your voice and how to pre-wire your audience so they all agree with you, or how to use Zoom and more, there are, like I said, 30-odd presentation podcasts on the Manager Tools website. If you go to manager-tools.com and search in the search bar for presentation, on the left-hand side, you can narrow it down to podcasts, and then you'll see all of those podcasts that you can use to address the specific things that you might be worried about. Hopefully we can get some more people speaking up, because whatever it is you have to say is valuable. You're on your team for a reason, and you have good thoughts, and your company wants to hear them. So hopefully we've taken away some of the worries and allowed the world to hear your voice. Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Wendy.
That's all for this week. We'll be back next week with a new topic. Bye, everyone.
Bye.